My name is Patrick Andrews. I'm the Chief of Markets at the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. Thank you so much for joining us today, being part of this webinar. I apologize for some of the technical stuff here. Webinar specific feature of Microsoft Teams is a newly enabled feature. So I'm not sure how much of the stuff that we're dealing with is ignorance because we don't have experience using that feature, at least not deep experience yet, or if it's just because it's new and a couple of things aren't working the way they're supposed to. But either way, we should be able to impart a good deal of meaningful information to you today. Part of my job at the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture is leading the farm to school effort on behalf of the department. So I administer this grant program. I also participate in the Farm to School Network on the national level and on our statewide Farm to School Network that Lauren's going to talk about. I work with my colleagues in health and education and support programs all around the state. I also do a training once a year to teach farmers or various types of producers how to enter into the institutional wholesale market where schools exist in the supply chain. And do it profitably. So it takes a little bit of the fear of the unknown and technical aspects of engaging in school food for farmers who participate in the program. And it has been pretty successful. We've been doing that since 2017. With that, I'd like to introduce Lauren Ross. She is an associate at the Food Trust in Philadelphia. If you're not familiar with the Food Trust, please check out thefoodtrust.org. They're an amazing food systems nonprofit. They do a lot of work around access, and they are spearheading the efforts of the Pennsylvania Farm to School Network and doing an amazing job. So take it away, Lauren.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, so I'm Lauren. I'm with the Food Trust, and I'm the program manager of the PA Farm to School Network. A little context for that: the Food Trust is the host agency of the network, and I work with Samantha Gibb, who some of you may know, to coordinate the activities of the network. So the network was started in 2017. But started with its first strategic plan in 2020, which we are just about wrapping up now, and we're getting started on our second strategic plan. And the goals of the network are to meaningfully connect every student in Pennsylvania with their local food system. So we do that through the Vermont Feed model of the 3 C's, which is the classroom, community, and cafeteria. So we really work to follow those guidelines to connect all students with their local food system. And something that helps with that are grants like the Farm to School grant. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that today.
Cool. So one quick technical check-in, Lauren. When I'm talking, are you still able to see my screen or you just see me?
Yes, I see your screen.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure that this setting is correct. Did you have anything else you wanted to add before we jump in?
So if you want to learn more about the network, you can stay up to date with us through our website. I'll put this stuff in the chat. We also have a newsletter with lots of information and resources. So if you're ever curious about what opportunities and grants are coming down the line, that's a great way to stay up to date. And also stay up to date with some of our professional development opportunities, like Patrick mentioned, with the wholesaler workshops and things like that. So I'm going to post some of those links in the chat.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Again, I'm going to go through, what I'm going to do now is go through a quick PowerPoint to kind of give you an overview of the program. And if you might have noticed, I'm not in my office. I'm in a hotel room because I'm in Pittsburgh getting ready for the Pittsburgh Food System Summit that's going to start later this afternoon. So I don't have all the equipment that I'm used to. I'm on my small laptop screen and stuff. So let me know. Please put any questions, or if anybody's having technical problems, throw them into the chat. If you have questions about the program, after I'm done talking about all these, about the talking through the slides and talking through the various elements of applying, you can certainly raise your hand. I will enable your microphones and your cameras, and you can come on and ask your question. You can also, if you want to make sure you don't forget your question, you can throw it in the chat, and Lauren will line it up for me and fire them at me afterwards, so that we make sure we get to everybody's questions. So, okay, Farm to School, Pennsylvania Farm to School Grant Program. Oh, here we go. I guess I got to use my scroll wheel. So eligibility. This is going to be public or private or charter schools with a pre-kindergarten or elementary through 8th grade classrooms may apply. Now, this also for pre-K means centers. So any center-based early education environments are eligible to apply as well. And this is not all inclusive. You don't have to have pre-K through 8th grade. Any one classroom at any one of those grades is eligible. At the moment, family-based early care and education centers are not eligible. That is subject to change. We do have some planned amendments to the Farm to School Act. One of the things that we're hoping to get is to open the program up to be a little bit more inclusive. And right now, you're also required to participate in a federally subsidized child nutrition program. So again, that's something that I think we're aiming to remove as a requirement so that it is open to any school and all the kids of Pennsylvania. You know, we want that to be open. Now, school districts with multiple requests. And a great example, I said I'm in Pittsburgh, like Pittsburgh Public Schools. We'll use an example. It's a huge school district. So, you know, one award for that school district is kind of a small amount. And they might say, well, I'd like to do a lot of different locations. So they can have individual school buildings apply rather than their school district. And the reason for that is that when we talk about the definition of a school, a public school district and an individual public school building both meet that definition. So if the limitation by the comptroller's office is there can only be one award per entity. So that school district and that school building are they are the same entity, but the individual buildings, when compared to one another, are not the same entity. So if you want to have multiple awards within one district, you need to have those individual buildings apply. Okay, so that the name of the applicant needs to be that particular school building, not the district. The contact person can be the same, but the applicant needs to be the school. And that's the same with preschools. The applicant should be your actual school. Okay, not you, you know, Sarah Smith that works at, you know, the Learning Apple or whatever, you know, it should be the school's name that goes in there. So at any rate, individual schools can apply. I will give this one caveat. You know, this is a very competitive program. Last year, we had 152 applications for over $2 million, competing for $500,000 worth of funding. So if your school district has 15 different applications, it is extremely unlikely that we're going to fund all 15, even if they are amazing applications, because we also have an imperative to kind of spread this funding around. We do have counties that I will list off at the end of this that have not yet received an award that are going to be a priority to get awards to. So if you're in one of the 17 counties that has not yet received an award, I definitely encourage you to apply. You still have to have a decent application. It's not like, well, if you have a heartbeat and you're in this county, you're going to get an award. It still has to be a meaningful application, but hopefully this webinar will help you get there. All right. The steps: go to the PA Farm to School Grant Program page, okay, to download the instructions, application template, and budget template. I will put that link in when I'm done talking as well. That will have everything you need. It will have a link to the guidelines that are the technical legalese guidelines in the PA bulletin. It'll have all of the documents, the most important one being the instructions document that we're going to review here shortly. And it will have a link to the single application of assistance where you're going to upload those documents and also input some more data to complete your application. So step 2 is read the instructions carefully and thoroughly. I cannot stress enough, you know, these instructions get updated annually. So even if you read last year's instructions 17 times, you still need to read these instructions very carefully and look for the changes. Some of them are just enhancements to explain. Some of them might be requirements, but we do try to fine tune the instructions every year to make them more and more helpful to you, honestly, to give you a more clear picture of the requirements. If you don't read these instructions, or if you don't read the instructions carefully, or if you have questions and you don't take the time to email them or call me and get them answered, there is a good chance that we won't even review your application, because we get so many that when I find applications where they, for example, you have to submit your budget on the budget template provided. If you submit your budget on a different template, we're not going to call you, we're not going to email you and say, oh, please resubmit your budget, you accidentally used the wrong template. we're just not going to review your application because there's just too many applications coming in. So we're only going to review applications that comply with all of the regulations, the requirements of the Act, and the instructions in the instructions document. So just to be clear, and that is just because we cannot do otherwise. There's just not enough time to do this and get these contracts ready before school starts next year. So use the instructions to complete the application and budget templates. Save them as PDFs using the naming convention specifically described in section 6B of the instructions. Step 4, log into the single application for assistance. This is the same application that you would log in for just about any Commonwealth grant. Some Commonwealth grants, you have to fill out the application inside the single application for assistance. That is not the case here. You are going to upload these documents. There will be required information that you have to input, but there will be like the narrative and the budget template. Like you don't fill those out. And the budget template, you are going to put in like your award amount that you're seeking and the amount of in-kind that you're bringing to the table, but not a full-on, this is how much for supplies, this is how much for contractual. That's all going to be in the budget template. And all of these details, again, are in the instructions document. So if you read that instructions document 17 times and you know it, and you've answered all your questions, you're going to do just fine. Completing the application. And we're going to go through all of this, but it's basically it's really, there's 8 sections. These are the most important ones: required information, summary, narrative, and budget template, saving and naming files, and single application for assistance. There is another section called helpful to know with lots of things that help you avoid making mistakes or not complying with the instructions because it adds a little bit more clarity. Also, we're going to talk briefly about these 3: narrative, and budget, and how they differ from one another when we review the instructions. Required information that we're going to cover is just general project information, completing all the fields. Make sure you complete everything. One of the things the instruction says is if the answer to the question is 0, don't leave the field blank. If 0 is what you mean, then put 0 in the field, right? Complete all the fields in the table. If you do not have a free and reduced lunch rate, contact the closest public school building to your operation and find out what their free and reduced lunch rate is. Just call them and ask, and they'll give it to you. It's public information. They got to give it to you. And then that's indicative of the demographics that you're going to be looking at. So that'll be helpful. The list of farms. For the farms, you have to give us the name of the farm, contact information, and the list of products. Just one of those 3 pieces of information, or just 2 of those 3 pieces of information, is incomplete information. So we need to know the name, the contact information, and the products that you have discussed purchasing from them. The products can change. The farmer can change, honestly. Between the time you fill out the application and you're ready to go, I was going to buy zucchini from Bob, but now I'm going to buy squash from Susie. No problem. You don't even have to let us know. Just make sure it's included in your report that that's what happened. You know, we want to know on the back end. The point of this is that I need to be able to call somebody and find out that you had an actual conversation with them. You didn't just say, well, I know I can get a hold of a farmer. That's not good enough. We need to know that you actually spoke to a farmer and you know, if getting local food is part of your project. If it's not, then this doesn't apply to you and you don't have to fill it out at all. But yeah, we want to know that you actually did the research, you had a conversation, and you have a pretty good idea of the things that you're going to get. These things do change, though, and we already know that. You don't need to worry about that. The summary, the short description of the proposal and activities that highlights the important aspects and goals of the project, right? So this is a short and sweet. It's a maximum character limit of 500. Your narrative is the extended and detailed look at the proposal. Should include methodology, expected outcomes that will be focused in on your reporting. Okay. The narrative is also really, really important, that you are connecting your project to the mission of this grant program. So every government grant program has a mission it's trying to accomplish. And you're effectively, like for Farm to School, we want to connect kids to the food system in a meaningful way. And we are telling you in this program, these are the types of projects, right? Like there's experiential learning, which could be a school garden. It could be service learning or a field trip to a farm. There's academic learning that happens inside the classroom. right? So that's curriculum or workshops, and there's also training for staff to execute those things that goes along with it. And then there is bringing the food into your little ecosystem at the school so that you're getting local food into your cafeteria and into kids' bellies. You're telling them about the food and where it comes from. You're asking them how it tastes and do they notice the difference. These are meaningful ways of connecting kids to the food system. So you want to tie what you're doing to how you are impacting them through that connection, right? In your narrative. Don't just like say, this is what we're going to do. I mean, you can do that, but it's just way less effective. Another thing that happens in narratives is folks will just dump in a whole lot of data about why we need this, right? Because that feels really strong and like I've given a lot of rationale about why we need this. Thinking about the reviewer, one thing you need to understand is we already know why we need to do this. That's why the grant program exists. The type of data that you should put in, if that's a way that you want to go with your narrative, is how your population fits into that need model that we already know about, right? So specifically, what about your population needs to be connected to the food system, or how will connecting them to the food system have an impact on them specifically, right? Budget narrative. Okay, briefly describe how the funds will be leveraged to accomplish the goals of your proposal. So every part of your budget should be discussed and justified within this narrative. This is a discussion of your budget. It's not a regurgitation. We don't want you to simply type your budget out in long form, which is what happens a lot. And that's understandable. Some of this stuff is a little confusing. What we want you to do is connect the spend to how it achieves the goals. So if I buy this piece of equipment for my kitchen, which is a great thing to talk about too. We get questions about, equipment and can I buy equipment? It's covered in the instructions document. So hopefully it's answered for you there, but I'll cover here that the equipment needs to be tied to the goal. So if you want to buy a smoker for your cafeteria, if you happen to be a food service director on this call, yes, that would be cool. It would be cool to have a smoker and do some smoked meats. However, you want to tie that to how is that something, did you survey the kids? And a lot of kids told you they really love smoked meat and they'd eat more meat if they could, like some local meat, if you could smoke it. You need to tie it to how this is going to impact your proposal, not just this is equipment I'd like to have. So something that would be easier to do is maybe something that quickly processes whole vegetables. A lot of school cafeterias don't have staff that are skilled with a chef's knife, right? They don't necessarily know how to break down every raw ag product that comes through the door. So maybe like a tomato slicer that helps you quickly slice fresh tomatoes. And now you're not buying pre-sliced tomatoes. And you'd say in your budget narrative, buying this piece of equipment allows the labor in my kitchen to be able to process whole raw products, thus allowing me to buy more products from local farms. Right. And that's a very strong argument about why that piece of equipment should be part of your proposal. So, and it's a great example of how you're discussing spending the money achieves the goals of your program, right? Not just like, well, and I know that when you're talking about supplies could be like ink and paper clips, and it's kind of like it's hard to tie, like, why do I need paper clips? I just think you just take a general approach to that stuff is like, these are going to all help us with our marketing materials to tell the kids about the local food that we bought for our cafeteria. And we're going to make these posters and we're going to use this double-sided tape to hang the posters, So, so not everything is necessarily a very sexy discussion of the spend achieving the goals, but it's still generally what you should do. Don't just regurgitate the budget, right? Budget, did I cover the budget? Yeah. Well, we'll look at the budget template. Saving, naming your files is covered very clearly. You want to use a PDF as the format, follow the naming convention of the name or unit, which is going to be like your school name. Like public schools use SD, other schools use SEH, and centers use CTR. Charter schools use CS, private schools could use PS, things like that. And that goes into more detail in the instructions. Keep them handy so you can upload them. Single application for assistance I already covered, and it's in the instructions. And then this is my contact information. I'll leave this here for just a second while I'll leave it here for just a second so people can write down this email address and my phone number, because you can call me or email me. And, feel free, if you call, that's my office number. that rings my computer, but it also will ring my cell phone simultaneously. So if I don't answer the phone, which there's a good chance I won't, because unfortunately I get scheduled for a lot of meetings, I will call you back as soon as I can. I tried to do that, especially while the grant program is open. I try to return grant related phone calls within a day. And like that. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second here and just bring up some templates that we can look at. Oh, there you are, Lauren.
Yeah, we just have one question from the chat.
Okay.
Someone was curious if the number of sites, like you were saying, with school districts, if you have a lot of schools in your school district, that might affect how much you get. If that also applies to centers, this person has 3 centers in one legal entity.
So again, it kind of, I'm going to share my screen while I'm talking here. It depends a bit on, what the award you're looking for. So a school district can apply for as one application for multiple sites. It's just that the maximum award is $15,000, right? Which is why for Pittsburgh Public Schools, if they wanted to do something for a whole bunch of, they could say, you know, I want to do this for 30 different buildings. Well, $15,000 is not a lot of money for 30 different buildings. We're also not going to fund 30 projects for them either. So, you know, there's that issue. But they might want to say, like, I want to submit 3 applications, you know, for 15,000 each. Because these schools have a large population of kids, and the money wouldn't go very far if it was only a couple $1,000s per school building. Same thing for a center, a preschool center. You know, you can do one application for, you know, 3 different sites. That's fine. Or you could have each of those sites apply on their own. Either way is fine. They'll still meet the definition of school if they're doing it on their own. The issue becomes one of competitiveness, right? We're much more likely to fund one grant program per school district or grouping of entities than we are to fund multiple, just in the interest of trying to spread the funding around. We do fund multiple grants for one school district if we think like it's warranted, it's a sizable district, and we see that, you know, really there's a need. And you know, we're not necessarily going to fund that school district again for the same buildings next year, though, right? Because part of what we want to see here is some sustainability. We want you to try to carry these programs on your own. And it's understandable, you know, in terms of buying local food, maybe you're not going to buy quite as much local food the following year because you're saying, well, I don't have that extra money added to my budget, but this farmer that I met does have pretty competitive prices. And now I'm just going to use geographic preference to be able to buy their food. Or, you know, as of, I think, a month from now, you're going to be able to use local as a specification in your bidding. So you can just say this needs to be local, right? And you don't have to buy the cheapest thing. So that maybe some of these relationships will last beyond grant funding, and that is sustainability to us. Like, we want to see these things continue on. We're still working on other ways to find money for schools to have for purchasing local products. You know, that's something that the network is actively working on very adamantly. More to come on that in the future. But yeah, so hopefully that answers that question. Let me just walk through these templates really quickly here. And again, throw questions in the chat or save them and raise your hand. I'm going to go a little bit out of order and cover the budget template first. This is an Excel spreadsheet. You're going to want to save it as an Adobe PDF when you're all done, okay? The first thing to note is that there's 2 tabs down here. There's your budget. This is what you're going to fill out, and then there's an example. I'm going to click over to the example here and show you how I have it filled out. And I will close this up to make this. Is this pretty visible to you, Lauren? Okay, because on my laptop screen, I never know if it's too small. So you can see here, there's the applicant name and the applicant project name, right? So Super Cool School District and the Groovy Greenhouse for the Kiddos, right? This is what their project is. It's telling me I have the right template going with the right project. Again, this notes field here is not meant to be where you do your budget justification. That's in the budget narrative in your application template I'm going to show you. This is just some little notes if you're just like want to explain a little bit. This is for 6 staff members. That's telling the reviewers they're looking over this. Oh yeah, that's right. This isn't contractors. They're not bringing outside people. This is actually staff within the school. That can, any little tidbits that you want to throw in these notes to to remind a reviewer when they're looking at this, right? What this is for, that is relevant or you think helps. As you fill out this part of the budget, this is for your grant award. This is what you're going to spend grant money on right here. It comes down here and it tells you a total, and then it gives you your match requirement. In other words, it's saying this is your required minimum match, which is 25%. This is covered in detail in the instructions. There are several different models that are used to demonstrate this to you, but I'll say it here too. The match is 25% of your project total, not 25% of your grant award. So in other words, your grant award is 75% of your project total, or 3/4 of your project total. And the required match is 25%, or that last fourth. So combined, they make your project total, right? So again, you can take a look at this in the instructions. This will be locked. Last year we had somebody alter the formula, so they obviously were disqualified. But this is locked, so that can't be changed. I meant to lock it last year too, just somehow we published a non-locked version of the spreadsheet. At any rate, this is telling you your minimum amount. You come down here and here is your match budget. So we want you to show us the budget, not just like, oh, it's going to be this much. Where is it coming from? What is it for? So here's cash. We're going to spend $1,000 of our food service budget. Okay. And here's in kind, like here's office supplies we're going to include, labor that we're going to include, and lumber that we're going to include. As this totals up down here, if you have met your match requirement, this cell will turn green. If you don't, oops, I can't do it because it's locked. If it was less, it will turn red. Okay. So, which is what this is telling you here. So there are two different places where we're trying to ensure that you've met your match requirement and take any opportunity to make a mistake here out of realm of possibility. So again, on the regular template, this is all empty. You can see here, you're just going to fill in your personnel. Maybe it's going to be, you need $2,000, and travel, you need $500 and $9,000. Okay, so it says your match total is $2,336.33. And I'm going to put in $1,000 of food service dollars. And you come down here and it says, nope, that's not enough, right? But if I make it $3,000, we come down and it's green, saying, yes, you're good to go. So, so there's that. The next thing I want to share with you is the application template. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, and then we'll go through the instructions document. This is your general information. Down here is this is a new thing added to the template that I want to point out real quick, your administrative unit number. That is the number that you receive from the Pennsylvania Department of Education that is tied to your federally funded child nutrition program. Or actually, maybe it's from the federal government, but you can look it up here. You click on this and it's going to take you to a website. And I'm not sure how quick. Yeah. So it is the Pennsylvania, Department of Education. You can search and find your number there. You can also just ask your business manager probably for it, or your food service director if you're not a food service director. Your grant request, the type of project that you're putting together. We ask you here for, have you previously received a grant? And then this is new. We're asking you to type in which years, right? Here's your site information, which must include your House and Senate district numbers. That's really important. This is something that will be pre-populated when you fill out the site information in the single application for assistance. That's one duplicative bit of information you have to fill out. It'll populate those numbers for you in the application, or at least it does on my side when I'm reviewing. But these are, again, places where you can look these things up. You just type in your address, your county, city, street, all of that. Say that you're not a robot, and it will bring it up for you. So there's a few pages here of that. You can delete the second page if you only have one site, because it's telling you here, like it's filled in for you. This is site number 1, because you have to have at least one site, and then you can fill in 2 and 3, and then there's another page, and then you can either, if you have a whole bunch of sites, you can copy and paste this over in the side. Again, making sure you're using Adobe. Do not use anything else other than Adobe to create more opportunities for sites. So this is your list of farms, as I described before, the name, contact information, and which we prefer to have a phone number, and just a list of products that you've discussed with them to purchase, which again is totally subject to change. And then these are the areas where you're going to put your summary, your narrative, your budget narrative. And what happens when you start typing, if you exceed the bottom of the page, what will happen is a little scrolling bar will come up on the side here, and it will continue to scroll. And so as reviewers, we'll be able to see it. Just make sure that you only save it as a PDF. Like, just click save. Don't do save as. Don't change the format in any size, shape, or form. Don't print it and then scan it and then upload it. That will mess it up. We won't see the whole thing. We just won't review it. This is, again, all covered in the instructions. I'm just saying it verbally here, so you're hearing it a couple times. So narrative, 8,000 characters, and then budget narrative, 6,000 characters is your limit. Okay. I'm just going to run through the instructions very quickly again. It starts off with an overview, right? It's telling you about eligibility. It's giving you the steps that you're going to follow, meaning you're going to go to the program page. You're going to get your documents. You have to make sure you have Adobe. You're going to read the instructions as much as you need to, because if you don't, your application may be set aside, right? And we're saying that right in the front. Okay. And then you're going to upload to the single application for assistance. There's little tidbits in here and dark blue balloons, as in, for the purposes of this program, the broadest definition of local is defined as within the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That's as broad as you're allowed to go. You can't go outside of our borders with this money. You're free to define it more narrowly, but food may not be purchased outside of our borders. Then we cover completing the application, all the required information, how to register for a vendor number. If you want to, you don't have to. How to look up your AUN number, again, is covered here, just as there's a link in the application. Here's completing site information, the list of farms, your summary, your narrative, your budget, narrative, right? And your budget, filling out the budget template with links to the back to the program page, which I will show you again here in just a minute, because like I said, I'm going to put that link in the chat. Saving your name in your files, the single application for assistance, and then I'm going to scroll through this very quickly. There are screenshots of the single application for assistance showing you what you have to fill out, because there's a bunch of stuff you're going to bypass, right? So this is like walking you through exactly what you're going to see as you go through this, and showing you, what you want to put in, right? Again, make sure you name your don't name your project farm to school project. I cannot tell you how many applications we get with farm to school project as the name of the project, because it just, as I look through a folder full of things, and obviously the school district's going to be part of the name of the file. So that helps make it more distinct, but it's helpful for your project name to be descriptive of what you're going to do. Yeah, we're going through all these. And now we get down to the helpful to know. This is the 8th section, but it's not numbered 8. So matching funds, here is your model. 2 different models as percentages and fractions about the match. Here we're telling you about, the different types of things that are eligible for match. Again, you want to discuss the match in your budget narrative, not just the award, but the match items. Discuss those as well. Entering data, do not leave any required fields empty. Don't use ranges too. Put in a specific number that's most representative of what you think it's going to be. And always enter 0. 0 is what you mean. There's some stuff around procurement, meaning, we're going to reimburse invoices. If you're doing just procurement, you're just buying local food, then any invoice that you have for local food will pay up to 75% of that invoice, all the way up to $15,000 or whatever your award was that you sought. Notes on procurement of food. There's some webinars, discussion of leveraging geographic preference, which again, next year, you'll be able to use local as a spec, which is going to be great. So I'll be adding that to next year's instructions once all the documentation about that comes out. And then this is a really important piece here, help desk stuff. So for technical program information, you want to call me or email me. If you're having trouble with the single application for assistance, then you want to call these phone numbers or this email here. Okay, and to ask for assistance. If any of this isn't working, just call me and I'll get you the correct information, because sometimes these things do change. I did not get any notification that anything changed this year, but you never know. We are the government. We like to break things. So the last thing I'm going to show you here is the Farm to School grant page. I'm going to copy this link and let me put it here in the chat. There you go. So hopefully everybody can grab that and save that link as their. This is going to show you, this is going to have links to everything. Here's the instructions, the application, the budget template. You can also find those inside the single application for assistance. They're also over here on the right. There's a reimbursement template that might change. This is a link to the online guidelines that are part of the Pennsylvania Bulletin. This is it right here. This is the legalese. This is also something that you should absolutely read. There's last year's webinar that will be replaced by this year's webinar. Questions from the Q&A session will be, Lauren will be capturing those, and we'll post the questions and answers for those as well. And this is the slides that I already showed you. Again, my contact information, some discussion around use, funding, eligible costs, ineligible costs, limitations, and again, how to apply. So if you have this link, you have everything. It's all here. The guidelines are also called the RFA, the request for applications, your templates, your instructions, and a way to get a hold of me. So that pretty much concludes it. That's about 45 minutes of our hour and a half here. Well, minus the 6 or 7 minutes that it took us to get the technical stuff wrapped up. But I'll stop sharing here. And I'm sorry if I went through anything fast. Your question can be, can you go over this again? That's totally fine. So, yeah.
Do we have questions in the chat? Both from Carla. She wants to know, does the grant cover labor? She's asking if she wants to provide farm to school like fresh beef, and the beef is raw. She'll need more cooking time and labor to cook those items. Is that allowable?
Wait, say the last part again. Fresh beef.
Yeah, to prepare fresh beef, she'll need more cooking time and labor to prepare that. And she's asking if that's an allowable cost.
That's interesting. So typically, typically we don't pay for labor for school staff during school hours. Mm-hmm. But that's a compelling argument, right? It also would depend, some stuff, the labor is just waiting, right? You need more time, but if you put it in first and then do all of your other work, it's not really taking you away from anything. So I think if you want to make an argument for labor, it's not specifically ineligible. It's just not something that we typically allow for during school hours. But I think if you can say, well, this is not something that I can just put in the oven when I first get to work and then do everything else. This is something that requires somebody to stand there and be attentive to, and, we're butchering things down. You can ask for it and make an argument for it. I can't say for sure whether it would get funded, This grant program, and I would say this is true of most grant programs, they're not designed to take on the burden of everything. We expect you to bring something to the table too. So we're trying to alleviate some things to kind of get you going down this path that we hope you stay on. And when I mentioned earlier that we're not going to fund, that we don't always fund projects year after year, we don't always not fund them, but we certainly don't do it on an ongoing basis. That's for sure. So you might get funding 2 years in a row. Especially if you show that you're building on your first year, it's not just a rinse and repeat, but like, okay, we got this far this year, and now we want to get this much further down the road, and here's how you can help us do that, to elevate our programming. So yeah, so you can certainly, like I said, include that, but just make a really strong argument. But I can't guarantee that it will get funded. And if we don't fund it, it doesn't mean that we wouldn't fund anything. We might say we'll fund everything but this labor. That could be too. But yeah, go ahead. And also, let me just say, I enabled everybody's microphones and cameras, so you should be able to go under reactions, or to the left of reactions is raise your hand, and we can select you to come on camera and ask your question too. But go ahead, Lauren.
Yeah, second question from Carla about the site. If they're doing separate applications for each school, do they write one site on the application template? I'm assuming this is a school district.
Well, she's saying if the individual schools are writing the application as opposed to the district writing the application.
Yeah.
So yeah, you only if you only put in the sites that are relevant to that specific application. So yeah, if another building in your district is applying, just pretend like they're not, only talk about your project. Okay. Anybody raising their hand? Nobody's raising a hand yet.
What counties are a priority?
Oh, yes. Shoot, I'm glad somebody said that. I almost forgot about it. Let me go through. I have been tracking this. Front School Grant Program, success data. Okay, so I'm just going to need to, hold on a second. Because I'm on such a small screen now. Hide. And hide. Okay, so Cameron County, Carbon County, Clarion County, Clinton, Columbia. Now Columbia has applied, but somebody in Columbia has applied, but was not awarded. Elk, Forest, Fulton, Indiana is another one that has applied, but not received an award. Back to never applied is McKean County, Potter County, Snyder. Somerset has applied, but not been awarded yet. Sullivan, Venango, never applied, never awarded. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Sullivan and Union never applied and never awarded. Venango applied, but was not awarded. And then Warren County has never applied and never been awarded. So those are all the counties that are a priority for us to see them. It's important for us to see the funding spread everywhere in the state. So, we will be kind of adjusting some scoring for any applications that come from those counties, Try to make sure we have, we've supported programming in every county of the state. Any more new questions?
That's it from the chat.
That's it. Okay. I'll go back to looking at people, see if anybody raises their hand for questions. Maybe I just did such an amazing job with my presentation that everybody's like, no, you answered everything before I even thought of it. I doubt it, but oh, I see. Together mode is, that's weird. Anyway, so one thing I want to point out to folks is that there are some other grant programs that are relevant out there. There is the Ag and Youth Program, right, which is similar but different. Let me see. I'll share my screen while we're waiting for people to come up with questions, and maybe we won't get any, but I'll just try anyway. Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this is the main agriculture.pa.gov landing page, right? So on this ribbon that's across the bottom of the hero image, which right now is cows and chickens, is this grants and funding, right? So you click on that and then click on Farm Bill, PA Farm Bill. And over here on the, let me move this over here, on the right-hand side of your screen is going to be a list of the Farm Bill programs, which includes Farm to School. But I want to point out here the Ag and Youth Grant Program is another program that will be relevant to some, but not all. Okay. There's also the USDA Farm to School Grant Program. So if you just Google USDA Farm to School Grant Program, you're going to get the Patrick Leahy Farm School Grant Program, which they've recently renamed that in honor of Patrick. And it'll take you right down here to the latest request for applications. It's currently closed. That'll be opening up. That'll be opening up as in the fall sometime. I think it was, yeah, they're saying they expect it in October. Sometimes it gets delayed. You never know. If the budget's delayed, for sure, you know, if the budget's on time, then it probably will be all right. But at any rate, those are a couple of good things for you to know about, for sure. We're not the only game in town. Now, the only thing with the Farm to School Grant Program, the USDA Farm to School Grant Program, you cannot spend that money on food, right? Well, I think you can spend 10% of it on food if it's for like tastings or something like that. There's like a massive limitation on it. All right. Any other?
There's one question in the chat, just that could you drop those links in the chat?
Okay. And has Delaware County. I'll be look at that in just a second. So links. Yeah. Let me get, here is the copy. Farm to School Grant Program, USDA, and then back to the Ag and Youth. Copy. Paste. There you go. There's those two. Delaware County. Let's see. I can share my screen again. Maybe that's helpful for people to see what I'm looking at when I'm talking at you. Okay, so here's my tracker, which kind of shows across the various years that the program has run. There we go. So I don't know. I don't know why that's not scrolling. But at any rate, Delaware County, yes. They had a K-8 award. ECE's Early Care and Education, just tracking them separately. In 1920, one application that wasn't funded in 2021, nothing in 21-22, two applications that were not funded. Why is this not scrolling? That is bizarre. Let me close this and open it again. Okay. This work now? No. I don't know what I did to my spreadsheet. It won't scroll for me. Dang you, Microsoft.
What happens if you like highlight the cells and like drag over?
Yeah. Nope.
Mm.
Doesn't like that either. Yeah, maybe if I drag. No.
Mm.
That is weird. Okay. Well, apparently this is all I can show you. Microsoft doesn't want you to see anything else. I don't know what to say about it. Oh, goodness. All right. So yes, the answer is Delaware has been awarded. I can't say if they had any recent ones because I don't know. It just doesn't like me right now.
A couple other questions in the chat.
Okay.
Not familiar with the Farm to School program and need to learn more. I signed up for a webinar on May 23rd to hopefully find out more information on how to how'd you go about this program? Any suggestions?
Well, I'm wondering what this webinar is on May 23rd. I'm not sure. Is that it? Are you guys doing an open house or anything? Is that what's happening, Lauren?
No.
Or office hours? Or...
Oh, there's a new member info session. So yes.
Oh, maybe that's what it is. Yeah. Go to that webinar.
Yeah. Don't talk to me.
But also go to pafarmtoschool.org,
Yep.
do some reading there. You can also go to the National Farm to School Network, which is just farmtoschool.org. There are tons of resources there, talking at a very high level about farm to school and generally an overview of what it is. And then lots of, drilling down into the nitty gritty details about specific programming. They have that website's been around a lot longer than the PA Farm to School network has. So they probably have some more, so they have like a lot of toolkits and things there, if you wanted to figure out like a food safety plan for your school garden, they have things like that there. So both of those websites are great places to start. You can subscribe to the newsletter on a pafarmtoschool.org. As you get more involved, you can ask about getting involved in some of our working groups. We want involvement. We're eventually going to stand up a mentor program, having mentors around the state to help people like actually be face-to-face, and hands-on within communities to get started. So, and you can certainly always, if you have things that you specifically want to talk about, you have my phone number. I'll also just type in my regular email address here.
iPhone bunch of safe charges. So yeah, overall on the front.
So you can just email me or call me, and we can talk about whatever you're interested in. So.
Yeah, I'm also going to put mine in the chat. We are going to talk on the 23rd, so I'll see you then. But if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out.
Is the size of the county considered with regard to how many grants are awarded? No, it is not. We have, the first thing we look at is just the quality of the application. We score them. We have a scoring matrix. I will be completely transparent with you. I do not like our scoring matrix, and nobody likes our scoring matrix because it's something that's embedded into the Act, the Farm to School Act. We tried unsuccessfully to have it amended to be removed so that we could develop a more meaningful scoring metrics, that are just better at evaluating. And we now have done some studying of the grant program and the return on investment and how the funds have been distributed. So we're starting to look more at how we can, in fact, St. Joseph's University completed the study on the program. They have developed a new method of scoring that is that we're hoping to start using if we can get the amendments done this fall in the fall legislative session, which is what our legislative office feels is strategically possible, to remove the old scoring matrix and just say, we don't want to insert anything. We just want to insert language that says the department will develop scoring criteria that meet program goals, and just leave it at that. And then the awards will be given out based on, meeting the program goals plus demographic and geographical information. So there's a way. St. Joseph's University came up with a very technical spreadsheet that you can fill out to evaluate any grant program that will give you a score based on all those factors. So it'll be more meaningful and much more fair, honestly, than we're able to. One of the examples is we have to evaluate the way any grant program creates more markets for Pennsylvania farmers. Now, if you were just doing agricultural education in your classroom, that's a long road to go to get there, right, in your head about how is this going to create. But we do it, we try to do it and still create balance and balance like the types of awards. And those things are still important. And then we absolutely fund those programs. It's not that the scoring matrix prevents people from getting funding. It just makes it more complicated and difficult to do an effective job scoring them. So yes, we do provide feedback, Kendra. We do. It's not always welcome. Just say I have gotten some responses. I should say out loud to this group, and please don't take this like I think you personally need to know this, but nobody's guaranteed or entitled to any grant funding from the Commonwealth, period. There's no entitlement to any of these funds. And when you're not awarded, we're not keeping funds from your kids, as I have been accused of many times, that, you know, we're not doing something that we should be doing. We are doing our best to award applications that demonstrate that they're going to have the impact that they're designed to have. We're doing our best to distribute the money equitably. And that equitable distribution is looked at both demographically and geographically. But there's only so much that we can do under the current circumstances. And there's always next year. You can always save what you've written, build on it, change it, make it better, and use it again next year. Again, making sure that you're reading the instructions and complying with anything new. You don't want just going to copy and paste. You want to read instructions and then copy, paste, and edit. So
as a follow-up, this is Kendra. I'm sorry. So I did apply last year and didn't get it. Is there any way that I could get assistance based on last year's application for this year?
No, not from me. You know,
Okay.
I mean, you could have somebody else take a look at your application and give you some feedback. If you did not ask for any feedback last year, now some of it we gave automatically based on things that, you know, if people, it sounds like we probably did score your application and just said you weren't awarded. A lot of people were told, we're not even going to look at your application because you didn't, you know, you either, you know, didn't give us information you're supposed to, you are not eligible, you know, like you're trying to spend money on high school students and this only goes through 8th grade. There are a lot of things like that people's applications were set aside. But certainly anybody who asks for feedback above and beyond what we've already captured in our scoring meeting, we provide. Sometimes you can have a great application, and because even when we eliminated the people who were disqualified, we still had like 1.2 million in requests for $500,000. And we ended up having we found some extra money, and I think we gave out like $600,000 in awards. But yeah, there were a lot of good applications that we couldn't fund. So that's going to be part of it. You know, you can certainly also talk to your legislators about giving us a lot more money for our grant program. That's one thing you could do. Yeah. But it's a valid question, but I would maybe just have somebody else look at your last year's application. And if you don't get the money this year, just ask me right away for the feedback, and I'll provide it for you. That's no problem. Grant areas of opportunity, target audience. Yeah. So this is a question I can't answer, right? I cannot guide you towards like what's going to get funded, what's more likely to get funded. I've said a lot during this webinar about how to structure something to get funded. I can only guide you on technical things. Now, there are members of the Pennsylvania Farm to School Network. You could reach out to Lauren to connect you with somebody, folks who could probably provide you with some guidance in this area. But because I participate in the scoring, I can't have those types of conversations with you about what's a good subject or what's likely to be funded. You know, we do say, you know, we're the Department of Agriculture, so a priority for us is, you know, local food in some way, whether that's a tasting or like a little mini food hub that you put together after school where people can buy fresh produce, or whether it's buying food for use in the cafeteria. That's a priority for us, but you know, we still fund every type of application that we can. We try to have a very diverse portfolio of projects that are funded. Anybody else? Again, you can raise your hand, you know, if you want to. You don't have to type your question. You can just come on and unmute, and you don't even have to raise your hand. Just unmute and put your camera on and ask your question, or don't put your camera on if you don't want to. I don't know. Okay. I guess maybe there's no more questions. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't see any questions
Okay.
or hands.
Okay. Well, folks, thanks so much for joining us. I just wanted to double check with Barry Weisling. At one point, you came off mute like you were going to ask a question, and I was talking. I might have talked over you. So, did you have something you wanted to ask, Barry, before we go?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, all right, cool. I just want to make sure I didn't talk over you and you were not getting your needs met there. So, okay. Well, again, like you all have my phone number, both the resource account and my personal address. If it's just like a basic question about the grant program, please send it to the resource account. If you're like interested in connecting, like you want to like get on a phone call with me and fire a whole bunch of questions at me, as long as they're technical in nature and not qualitative questions, but technical questions. Feel free to reach out at my regular email address, and I can try to schedule, a 15-minute call at some point. We can just either be on the phone or we can do it like this virtually. Happy to help anybody and everybody, always wanting to work toward a new or a better understanding and always getting better and better applications. That's why we do this. We just want everybody to understand, what we're looking for in terms of the technical aspects of the application and how it all comes together, so that the reviewers, we want the reviewers to have a hard time, right? Because we want them all to be great, and really hard to find where the dividing line is about where the funding gets cut off. So, and also let me just say one more thing about the legislative changes that we're hoping to make. We're also going to ask for more funding. I don't know whether we'll get it or not. We certainly have a tremendous amount of data showing the need, in terms of how many qualified applications we get every single year. Feel free to spread the word on this grant program. If anybody on the phone is a nonprofit or a farm or some other type of entity other than a school, you might be saying to yourself, oh, crap, I'm not eligible to apply for this. You can still apply, but you have to find a partner who is a school or center, right? And that's willing to do a project that you can pitch them on an idea on how you can work together to do a farm to school project. They would have to be the grantee. You could still write an application for them or write it with them, or find somebody else to write it, whatever. The school or center needs to be the applicant. They would have to take the documents, make their account, log in, and do all the work to apply. And then they would have to take on the responsibility of distributing the funds, because the funds, they're gonna make all the payments and then get reimbursement from us, and the money will flow through them. So I don't know if I have anything else. Can you think of anything else, Lauren, that we should cover?
No, but yeah, if you have any questions about Farm to School in general, want to get more involved, then you can reach out to me. My email is in the chat, or check out pafarmtoschool.org and sign up for one of our new member info sessions. Like I see a bunch of you have in this meeting already, so I'll see a lot of new faces.
Yes. All right. Well, again, I'll just say one more time, read the instructions documents. Read it a bunch of times, and feel free, what I always tell people is make notes. As you're reading it, make notes like, oh, I got to remember that I have to do this, or I don't understand that, right? And you gotta have a list of things that you want to call and ask me about, right? But read it. Follow the instructions, tell your story effectively. Just think about somebody's reading it. Another key tip, a pro tip, is have somebody else read your application, your narrative and your budget narrative and your summary. Have somebody else read those and give you feedback on, like, do I feel like I want to fund this? Do I understand what you're doing? Do I understand how this connects to the program or the mission of the program? Get that feedback before you submit, because, you're talking to somebody's brain about, why you should get this funding, and you want to make sure that it makes sense to somebody. So please, again, call, email, and have a great rest of your week.